Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling um, when you just feel stuck, like you're in the English learning limbo.
Yeah, like you've hit a wall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know the grammar. Maybe you've even got like lists of words.
Right, the vocabulary list.
But actually speaking fluently, confidently, it feels like something's missing.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of you actually shared a source with us that hints at a maybe surprising way to unlock that fluency. And it's not about doing more grammar drills.
No, it's fascinating, really. It's just looking at reading something you might think of as just, passive as a key driver for your active speaking skills.
Interesting.
So yeah, today we're going to dig into the power of reading, how it's often underestimated for actual learning to speak English easily.
And it's all about using reading to improve speaking fluency.
That's the one.
Right. So here's the mission for you listening. Join us as we pull out the really practical tips, the actionable stuff, maybe some surprising facts about how just engaging with English text can seriously boost your speaking.
Yeah, we're moving beyond the sort of dry academic side of things.
Totally. This is about practical communication, how to sound more confident, more natural when you actually talk to people.
And it's interesting because, a lot of language learning focuses so much on direct speaking practice or listening exercises, which are important, obviously.
Of course.
But this source really makes a strong case that building a solid foundation through reading gives you this crucial underpinning that actually makes those other skills, speaking and listening, much more effective.
Okay, that makes sense. So where do we start? What's the first big benefit they talk about?
Vocabulary.
Yeah?
But crucially, not vocabulary from lists.
Ah, okay. Not the flashcards then.
Not primarily, no. It's about how reading introduces new words naturally, like within the flow of a real sentence, in context.
Right, so you kind of absorb the meaning.
Exactly. You infer it. And, research actually backs this up quite strongly. Words you learn from context tend to stick better.
Really?
Yeah, you retain them longer, and they're sort of more available when you need to actually use them in conversation. It's potentially way more efficient than just memorizing definitions.
Okay, give me an example. How does that work?
Well, the source used a good one. The little boy was thrilled to see the fireworks. So maybe thrilled is a new word for you.
Mm-hmm.
But the situation, little boy, fireworks, it gives you a really strong clue, doesn't it?
Yeah, you figure it means very happy or excited, something like that.
Precisely. And it's not just about getting that one word, thrilled.
Okay.
The source points out that by reading, you start to subconsciously recognize related words, synonyms. So you see happy, joyful, excited, delighted, and then thrilled.
Ah, I see. So you're building this kind of network of words in your head.
Exactly. Your brain starts making these connections, understanding the little differences in meaning between them, just by seeing them used in different situations across various tests. You don't have to consciously map it all out.
Okay, so building vocabulary naturally through context. Makes sense. Now, what about grammar? Because that's often the big stumbling block, isn't it? How does reading help there?
Well, this taps into something called implicit learning. It's really powerful.
Implicit learning.
Yeah, basically, you're not sitting down studying grammar rules explicitly. Instead, by just reading lots of well-formed English sentences.
Like the examples they give.
Right, like their example, she has been living in London for 5 years. Just seeing sentences structured correctly over and over again.
Your brain just absorbs it.
Kind of, yeah. It starts to internalize the correct patterns, word order, how verb tenses work, even those tricky little words like prepositions and articles. In London for 5 years.
So it's like your brain is getting tuned to English just by reading it without the textbook rules.
Pretty much. The more you read good English, the more natural those correct structures start to feel. You develop an ear for what sounds right.
Even if you can't explain why it's right grammatically.
Exactly. That often comes later or sometimes isn't even necessary for fluent speaking.
Okay, interesting. So vocabulary, grammar. What else? They mentioned comprehension too, didn't they?
Yes, enhanced comprehension. And this is key because it's about understanding the bigger picture.
Not just word-for-word translation.
No, exactly. It's about grasping the main ideas, the opinions being shared, maybe even the emotions behind the words. Reading trains you to do that, even if you encounter words you don't know.
How does that work? What are the strategies?
Well, the source talks about using clues, like the title of an article or headings within the text, looking for the main words that keep popping up, noticing the overall tone. Is it formal, informal, happy, serious?
Right. Skills you'd use in a real conversation, too.
Absolutely. Because let's face it, When you're chatting with someone, you can't just pause and look everything up.
No, definitely not. You got to follow the flow.
So reading practice helps you develop that skill of getting the gist, understanding the core message, even with imperfect vocabulary.
Okay. And I guess that ability to understand better then feeds into how well you can express yourself.
Precisely. Which leads to the next point, how reading improves both your writing and your speaking.
How so?
Well, when you read a lot, you're constantly seeing examples of how to structure sentences effectively, how to organize paragraphs logically, how ideas connect smoothly.
It's like seeing blueprints for good communication.
That's a great way to put it. You're seeing countless models. The source mentions, for instance, picking up natural-sounding dialogue from reading novels.
Yeah. Like how people actually talk.
Right. Or noticing how a writer might use a more vivid word. Instead of just, I am very tired, maybe you read, I'm exhausted.
And you start thinking, oh, I could use that.
Exactly. You start absorbing these more natural, varied ways of expressing yourself, and they gradually find their way into your own speaking and writing. It's like building a toolkit of expressions.
Just by reading them.
Just by encountering them repeatedly. And there's one more benefit here, which is maybe less obvious, but really important. Cultural insights.
Ooh, okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, language doesn't exist in a vacuum, does it? It's wrapped up in culture.
True.
So reading gives you this amazing window into English-speaking cultures. You learn about traditions, customs, social norms, how people live their daily lives.
Like the examples they gave, Thanksgiving or afternoon tea.
Yeah, things like that. By reading stories or articles set in those cultures, you start to understand the context behind the language, why people say certain things, how they interact.
So it's deeper than just vocabulary and grammar. It's understanding the mindset almost.
It definitely helps. It can make you feel much more comfortable and sort of navigate conversations more effectively when you understand those cultural nuances.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so those are the big background benefits. Now let's get really practical. How does all this reading actually make you a better speaker day to day?
All right, let's connect the dots. The first direct impact is building what the source calls a mental library.
A mental library?
Yeah, basically a collection of words and, importantly, phrases that you can pull out easily when you need them in conversation.
Because you've seen them used before in your reading.
Exactly. They're not just abstract words anymore. You see them in action. Think about greetings. Reading exposes you to the casual, hey, how's it going? Alongside the more formal, hello, how are you?
So you have options depending on the situation.
Precisely. And it goes way beyond greetings. How to ask for information politely. Could you tell me where the station is? Versus maybe a more blunt, where is the station? Reading shows you these variations.
You're collecting communication tools.
You are.
Yeah.
You're building this repertoire for different social contexts just by observing it in print.
Okay. What else? There was something about thinking in English.
Ah, yes. This is a huge one for fluency. Reading helps train your brain to think directly in English.
Cutting out the middleman of translation from your native language.
Exactly that. That translation step is what often causes pauses and hesitation when speaking.
Right, the buffering.
Yeah. But when you read a lot, your brain gets so accustomed to English sentence patterns and structures
Yeah.
that it starts to bypass the translation. You just think the thought in English.
How does that work?
Well, take their example phrase, I couldn't believe my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
If you've read that phrase, or similar ones expressing surprise, maybe multiple times, when you feel surprised in a real situation, that phrase is more likely to just pop into your head, ready to use. You don't have to mentally construct it piece by piece from your first language.
It becomes more automatic, like a reflex.
Sort of, yeah. You've internalized the pattern, and then there's a physical aspect, pronunciation, and rhythm.
Through reading aloud.
Yes. This is often overlooked, but reading aloud is fantastic practice.
I can see that. You're actually making the sounds.
You are. You're getting your mouth, your tongue, your whole vocal system used to producing English sounds. It helps you get comfortable.
And the rhythm, too.
Definitely. You start to feel the natural flow, the stress patterns in sentences. They use the example. She was absolutely thrilled to receive the award. Reading it aloud helps you feel where that emphasis falls naturally.
Makes sense. And they suggested reading along with audiobooks.
Yeah, that's a brilliant technique. You get the pronunciation model from the narrator.
And you try to match it.
Exactly. You're training your ear and your voice simultaneously. It's great for nailing down both pronunciation and that natural English cadence.
Okay, this is all sounding really powerful. Reading seems like a bit of a secret weapon.
It really can be.
So if we're convinced, how do we actually do this effectively? We need practical tips.
Absolutely. And the source gives some great down-to-earth advice. The first absolutely critical point is choosing stuff to read that's at the right level for you.
Right. Not too hard, not too easy. The Goldilocks principle.
Exactly. If it's way too difficult, you'll just get frustrated and probably stop.
Been there.
We all have. And if it's too easy, well, you won't be learning much that's new.
So how do you find that sweet spot?
They give good pointers. For beginners, things like graded readers are perfect. They're specifically written with simpler language and grammar.
Okay. What else?
Short stories designed for learners, children's books, seriously, they're great. Even comics can work because the pictures help with understanding.
And for intermediate learners?
Maybe adapted classics, where the language is simplified a bit, or straightforward news articles, blogs on topics you know. The general rule of thumb they suggest is aiming for about 80% comprehension.
80%. So you understand most of it, but there are still some new things to learn.
Exactly. Enough to follow along without constant dictionary use, but enough challenge to keep you growing.
Okay, level is key. What's next?
Interest. Choose topics you actually like.
This seems obvious, but maybe it's overlooked.
It often is. Reading stops feeling like a chore and starts feeling like, well, fun if you're reading about something you're genuinely interested in.
Makes total sense.
Are you into sports? Read sports news, player biographies, love travel, find travel blogs, music, science, history, whatever it is.
Find reading material about it, like their football example. If you love Messi or Ronaldo, read articles about them.
Precisely. You'll pick up vocabulary related to your passion, which is super motivating. It makes the learning stick because it connects to something you already care about.
So follow your interests. Don't just read generic stuff because you think you should.
Definitely not. And also mix it up. Don't feel like you have to just read books.
So use different types of reading materials.
Yeah. The source encourages using a variety. Books are great for depth and complex narratives. Blogs often have more conversational, everyday language. Magazines keep you up to date with current topics and how people talk about them now.
And audiobooks, which we mentioned for pronunciation.
Right. They suggest trying different formats, maybe read a chapter of a book, then listen to the audio version of that chapter.
Oh, that's clever. Reinforces it through different senses.
Exactly. You get the visual input, then the auditory, and you connect them. It's a really effective combination.
Okay, so we've got the right level, interesting topics, diverse materials. Now, the hardest part for many, making it a habit.
Ah, yes. Consistency. That's the magic ingredient.
How do you build that habit when life is busy?
Start small. That's the key message. Don't try to read for an hour every day right away if that's unrealistic for you.
Set achievable goals.
Totally. Maybe just 10 minutes a day. Or commit to reading one short article each morning or one short story per week.
And gradually increase it.
If you want to, yeah.
Yeah.
As you get more comfortable. They also suggest keeping a simple reading log.
Does that really help?
It can be surprisingly motivating. Just jotting down what you read and when. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. You see the progress piling up.
Like, wow, I read 5 articles this week.
Exactly. Simple goals could be read one page of your book today. Read one news headline and the first paragraph. Finish one graded reader chapter this week. Start small, feel successful, and build from there.
And how do you find the time?
Piggyback on existing routines. That's a great strategy.
What do you mean?
Link your reading time to something you already do every day. Read while you have your morning coffee. Read on your commute instead of scrolling social media. Read for 10 minutes before bed.
Habit stacking.
Kind of, yeah. Make it part of your established schedule. And use technology. E-readers, reading apps on your phone, online news sites, they make it easy to have reading material with you all the time.
So you can snatch those little moments waiting in line during a lunch break.
Exactly. Don't underestimate the power of those short bursts. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. It all adds up. Consistency over intensity, often.
And create a nice reading space if you can.
It helps. A comfy chair, good light, fewer distractions. It makes the experience more enjoyable and something you look forward to.
Okay, practical stuff. But what about when you hit problems? Like you do choose the right level, but you still keep hitting words you don't know. What then?
Yeah, that's inevitable. The first strategy, as we touched on, is try to guess from context first.
Resist the urge to grab the dictionary immediately.
Right, because it breaks your flow, your concentration. See if the rest of the sentence or the paragraph gives you enough clues.
Like the dazzling sun example again. You can figure out dazzling means something like very bright.
Exactly. Be a detective first. Then, if you're still stuck or you really want to know the precise meaning, use a dictionary, but wisely.
How do you use it wisely?
Read the whole sentence first. Pinpoint the keyword that's blocking your understanding. And, if possible, try an English dictionary.
Why English? English.
It keeps you thinking in English. You see the definition and example sentences in English, which reinforces the language, rather than just switching back to your native tongue for a translation.
Gotcha. Okay. What about staying motivated or just finding the time consistently?
Well, choosing interesting stuff is the biggest motivator, like we said. If you enjoy it, you'll make time for it. And again, short sessions. Don't feel you need huge blocks of time. 5 or 10 minutes of focused reading is much better than aiming for an hour and never doing it. Set those small daily goals.
Break it down.
Yeah. And finally, what about really long texts? Like a dense article or a whole novel? That can feel overwhelming.
Definitely daunting sometimes.
The advice there is chunk it. Break it down into smaller sections, chapters, paragraphs, whatever makes sense.
Okay.
Maybe read a section and quickly summarize the main point in your head or even jot it down. Highlighting key sentences can help too.
Reading aloud can help with focus too, right?
Yes, reading trickier parts aloud can definitely improve focus and comprehension. And if something is really tough, don't be afraid to read it twice.
Read it twice.
Yeah. The first time, just read through to get the general idea, the overall flow. Don't worry too much about details you miss.
Okay, get the big picture.
Then go back and read it again, more slowly, focusing on understanding the details, looking up key words if you need to. That second pass often makes things much clearer.
That's a good strategy. Takes the pressure off the first read.
Exactly. So we kind of wrap all this up. Reading in English is this incredibly holistic way to improve. It hits so many areas at once.
Yeah, it's not just one thing. It's vocabulary.
In context, grammar,
Absorbed naturally. Comprehension.
getting the real meaning.
Yeah.
And that flows into better speaking and writing.
Sounding more natural, plus the cultural understanding.
It's really comprehensive. But the absolute key, the thing the source stresses again and again, is consistency.
Doing it regularly.
Making it a habit, even small amounts, done consistently, will make a huge difference to your fluency over time.
Okay, so the message for you listening is pretty clear, isn't it?
Yeah, take the plunge.
Just start. Pick something, a book, an article online, a short story, anything in English that genuinely looks interesting to you. What are you curious about? What do you actually enjoy?
Find that and just begin reading. That's the first step.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Think about what opening up your English fluency could really mean for you.
Enjoying films or music without subtitles.
Connecting with people from totally different backgrounds. Accessing information online.
Understanding different perspectives. What's the first door you want that reading journey to help you open?
Something to think about. Keep reading, keep exploring, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.